everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Inside the Birds TV with Adam Caplan and Geoff Mosher. And we have a really special guest today, a man who not only played for the Eagles, but he's played in 2 Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl. He's played in 3 conference championships. It also happens to be his birthday. He only spent 1 year with the Eagles, but it was a phenomenal one. He is former Eagles wide receiver Torrey Smith, who helped the Eagles win their first and only Super Bowl in 2017. Thanks for joining us, Tori. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, nice seeing you. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Who would have thought 5 years after you helped the Eagles win a Super Bowl, they would be back to the NFC Championship? But when you look at the team, it's a different head coach, it's a different quarterback, totally different set of skill position players. There's a lot of guys I'm sure you played with on the lines, but how crazy is it to see this kind of remade team go from Super Bowl to 4 wins to 1 win away from a Super Bowl in just such a short amount of time?
I mean, it just goes to show you that's the NFL. First of all, it's not easy to make it each and every year, but it shows you the strength of the front office. That's nothing but the front office there. Understanding that each and every year, I like to say, out of the 32 teams, there are really probably only 10 based on their front office that going into it, they really stand a chance. Now, there may be a surprise team that sneaks up, but I'm talking about guys that it may be less than that. The 10 might be gracious, but there are organizations that, based on how they draft, how they develop, they're going to stand a chance each and every year. And I think since Harry Roseman has been the guy, Philadelphia has been there. So to be here as the number 1 seed at that, that's a testament to the front office and the coaches figuring out a way to get it done.
Tori, you had the amazing career where you play with Flacco, and he has that magical run in the playoffs in 2012, which I don't think anyone saw coming. It was incredible. Best football I think he's played in his career. Then Nick Foles plays 2 of the best games, not only in his career. I don't know if many quarterbacks in the playoffs played as well. So when you see this kind of play, is there anything in particular with both quarterbacks that you caught passes from both of them? Is there anything in particular that they did that was even better than they did in the regular season?
I mean, just not really. I think they were just playing at a very high level. Sometimes, it's like you get in your zone. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It happens in every sport where things are just rolling. But to me, I think it's just about the environment as well. Those guys are playing at an extremely high level, but so were our offensive lines, right? Our offensive lines gave them time to go out and make the plays. And then individually, when you think about it, there was a lot of one-on-one plays that were being made. But the ball has to be in position for guys to make those plays. And I think confidence builds off of that. That's the one thing that people ask me all the time, like what's similar between Joe Flacco and Nick Foles in terms of their play. And I'll say out of all the quarterbacks that I play with, those 2 are the best at giving their guys chances to win one-on-one. Meaning that regardless of how this concept is, how this play is, they'll say, hey, I like my matchup. I'm going to my guy. I'm giving him a shot. So there are 2 guys that you definitely love to play with, and it's no surprise that they got hot at the right time during those Super Bowl runs.
Tor, you're a perfect person to have to break down this game between the Eagles and 49ers on Sunday, the NFC Championship, because you played for both teams, and I imagine you kind of keep your eyes on both organizations. So how do you see this game kind of unfolding from a matchup standpoint? Who owns the more favorable matchups for these teams?
I think it's interesting when you look at it that way, because the thing I was more afraid of, knowing that the Eagles defense plays a little more soft at times and they like to allow things up front and rely on their front four to get pass rushing. Well, the San Francisco 49ers strength is getting the ball out quick and allowing their guys to run with it. So that cat and mouse game there is going to be interesting to watch, but having an opportunity to play with Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, I know he's the one individual player to watch. Everyone's going to be tied up in Deebo Samuel, but everyone knows he's going to touch the ball. He's going to run it. He's going to catch it with screens. But Christian McCaffrey is the one, to me, that is probably the primary concern in terms of his ability to match up with really linebackers or DBs. You can put Christian McCaffrey out at a receiver, and he can run the entire route tree like a receiver in the league. He's that talented. And to me, I think that matchup there is really going to be the difference, because it's going to be a battle up front. The Eagles have been so much better in the run on the back half of the season, but in the trenches are going to determine that. You talk about the defense, great on both sides, but the reality of it is I think it's going to come down matchup wise there. And I'm giving credit to the 49ers, with what they're able to do with Christian McCaffrey and getting guys the ball in space. But on the flip side of that, I like the Eagles receivers way better than I like the San Francisco 49ers secondary. So I think there's going to be a great opportunity there to attack them in the passing game.
When you look at Brock Purdy, it's kind of amazing just to see his maturation here, because he was really the fourth-string quarterback to start training camp, and now he's obviously the guy. If you were still playing catching passes from him, knowing that he's a rookie, would you be getting in his ear and try to help him out? Like, how do you help manage a young quarterback who's, and you played here, so to be able to play in this environment is not for everybody. To me, this is where I think the matchup could be won or lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about environment itself, it's like, man, if you played in one big stadium, then you played in noise, right? I tell people all the time, like, yes, some environments and their cheers and their chants, it's pretty cool. You appreciate it. It's distracting. But at the end of the day, that roar, that sounds the same no matter where you are. So I think for them, when you're on the field, when you're actually in the middle, it's just about executing. Right now, they're not going to be able to hear your cadence. They're not going to be able to hear any calls that you give them. So your signals are going to have to be on point. The number one way to get a quarterback's confidence going is success. Getting the ball out of his hands early, having completions early. And on the flip side of that, the number one way to derail him is to bat plays down. Don't make it easy. And that's the one thing that I do love in passing situations. This Eagles team does a great job of just getting pressure with their guys up front. Hassan's had an amazing year coming off that edge there. But you're able to just simply drop back and force the quarterback to be accurate, right? If their timing and spacing is right with the receivers and you're able to find spots in that zone, right? But the reality of it is with this Eagles defense being able to get pressure up there, if you make a mistake or if you let that ball sail just a little bit, there's going to be someone waiting for you.
Tori, let's go back to when you were with the Eagles and you guys were preparing to face the Vikings, the week of preparation for the NFC Championship game. We've had John DeFilippo on with us before. He talked about finding something where you guys all thought you had an opportunity to strike against a defense that had 6 Pro Bowlers on it. And of course, you guys scored 31 offensive points, 38 altogether. What is that week of preparation like? When do you find these tells? Do guys watch more tape? Do coaches watch more tape? When is the real kind of game plan formulated for what you guys want to do throughout the week?
Yeah, I think the coaches, it's their primary job, right? They've already been on it a week or two ahead. That's why the guys get paid the big bucks and stay there all night going and trying to get ahead. But it kind of builds over the course of the week. A guy may have a play that they're working at and it looks great, right? Or you may have had that one play that you've kind of been sitting on for weeks and then you go and pull it out like Philly special, right? You never know what's going to come. You practiced it and now you're going to use it and pull it out, right? So I think for the team as a whole, as you start to really get comfortable knowing this team, you start to really watch the matchups. The quarterbacks get comfortable when you execute in practice. That people forget that the scripted part of practice, seeing coverages, seeing looks, is so that it's ultimately just to build confidence. So when you see that look in the game, hey, we've done this already. We've seen this already. All right, we know, and there's no better feeling than when you hear a play call anticipating their coverage or this play versus a particular coverage, and you have it. You're like, hey, this is it, right? You're saying that to yourself, and now it's just on everyone to go out there and do their job and execute. But I think this team is going to they've been doing a great job preparing all year long. If the Eagles go out and just simply protect the ball and they're able to run the way they were last week, hit the big plays when they're there with Jalen, if they're able to protect the ball, I think they'll take care of business at home.
All right, let me quickly follow up, though, on that whole week of preparation when you work on things. And you mentioned the Philly special, but you caught a flea flicker touchdown against the Vikings in the championship game. Is that something that was worked on all season long and they dialed it up then? Or did you have a feeling that was going to be the game that was unveiled?
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to actually call it. It's one of those things where I tell people all the time, I was supposed to run a post. And I went, and it was a single high safety, meaning there's a safety, Harrison Smith, sitting in the middle of the field, and the corners out here one-on-one. I'm like, well, if I run a post, there's no way I'm going to be available. So if you actually go and watch the clip, Alshon Jeffrey was wide open underneath. But I was kind of able to lull him to sleep there on the outside because as a receiver, oftentimes you'll run them off and you kind of just drifting behind the start block, right? And then you're kind of watching him and seeing if he reacts and the ball's on your side or the other side. It's kind of body language things, right? You know, it's not like every play you're just like a lineman, like, hey, I'm going to maul you into the ground. You kind of get a feel for where it is and if it's on your side or not. And so as a receiver, I always knew I'm releasing outside, kind of like a light tap on him to know where he is. And so you doing that the whole game, it feels like run. And then I was able to kind of lull him to sleep and go up the sideline, and Foles saw it. He was able to see me flash wide open, and he threw a perfect ball there, and kind of the rest is really history.
Staying at the receiver level here, you've seen AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. They're completely different players, size-wise, and how they're used and so forth. But we know the Eagles like their big shot play defense, shot play offense. When you look at these two guys, when you watch them, what do you see?
Man, I talk about AJ Brown. I told him to his face when I was able to watch him play in camp. He reminded me of Anquan Bolden, physical receiver, explosive out of his breaks. He's quick, he's strong. If it's close, it's his ball, right? That's kind of how Anquan played. He was just a real bully on the field. And then we talk about Devontae. I mean, he's an absolute animal. There's not a route that he can't run. How smooth he is. He plays way bigger than his weight. I can't believe he fell in a draft because people were concerned about his size. I mean, you watch him go out there and play. He knows how to protect himself. He's a flat out baller. I think I think he eventually he's going to start getting credit as being, one of the top 10 receivers in the league. He has that type of potential and that star ability, and he's humble. So I don't see any reason why that's going to slow down. But you're talking about a dynamic duo there. They don't play the same. Their body types are different. So, when you talk about cornerbacks, you're feeling two different guys each and every time. Their playing styles are the same. They both can run too, which is the scary part as a defender. But the reality of it is, whichever side you're on, the cornerback knows that they're going to have some problems.
Tori, a big part of the Eagle offense is before sometimes they come out and hit those guys right away when they sense the defense or secondary is struggling. But a bigger part of their offense against better teams is RPO, quick game, Dallas Goedert, which eventually leads them to be able to hit some shots over the top. You've seen this Niners defense. How difficult will it be for them, the Eagles, to do their bread and butter, their zone reads, their keepers with Jalen Hurts, when they have to face guys like Warner and Dre Greenlaw and the safety Hufanga, who just came out of nowhere and is an incredible player. I mean, that's a really tough interior of the Niners defense. How much will that disrupt what the Eagles want to do?
I think the players are awesome there. Forgot the guy when it comes to the pass game that's coming off that edge, and Bosa. The Bosa brothers, both of them are legit, but watching them come out that edge there, Nick, it's going to be a problem there, a matchup problem. But luckily for the Eagles, their strength is their offensive line. So it's going to be a fun battle to really watch the entire game. But I think when it comes to this pass game, the opportunities are going to present themselves because the Eagles aren't going to shy away from running the ball, nor should they. Right? I think we've seen that this 49er defense is awesome, but it's not like there's some steel wall that you can't run your offense, or you have to all of a sudden change things. On the flip side of that, they're bringing guys, right? The pressure is going to be a challenge. Exotic blitzes, these things are going to be a challenge, but it's really going to boil down to just simply winning your matchups. And when you have those open shots, when guys are blitzing and you pick it up, someone has an opportunity to create a big play. And when those opportunities happen, you have to hit them. It can't be a situation where you're consistently missing them and you're out of sync because you don't know how many you're going to get. But I really do love this Eagles offense, and I think they're going to match up well versus 49ers defense.
Corey, some of the elder statesmen of the Eagles roster you played with in 2017, Kelsey, Lane Johnson, BG, Fletcher Cox, and some others. Are you kind of amazed that these guys are still playing?
Not at all. They're all playing at a high level. I think when you watch, probably the craziest thing is watching Brandon Graham. I mean, coming off of injury and just coming and building back and watching him there, man, I love it. The energy he brings. Brandon Graham is one of the best teammates I've ever had in my life. And I'm saying that, but Jason Kelsey's right there as well, as one of them, and Lane Johnson, right? I mean, they're just a bunch of Fletcher Cox, right? He's probably the one I talk to more than anybody. But they're all just great men leading this organization and playing at a high level there. And I think for them to be in this situation, there's no secret as to why this team is in this position. Yes, there's talent there. Yes, there's a great mixture of veterans and younger guys that are stepping up. But those guys are the backbone of this team and their leadership, and they've been there. And so having that is a huge advantage for this team going into this game.
You mentioned Nick Bosa, and we know that right tackle Lane Johnson, an all-pro, one of the best, if not the best in the game, is playing through a torn adductor tendon in his groin. I'm wondering if you've ever had an injury similar to that, and if you've had to try to play through that, and how you, if so, how does someone play through that?
Yeah, I actually played my entire rookie season with that same surgery, and had my surgery done by Dr. Myers right over there in the Navy Yard. So Lane will be over there in about a month or so getting that same exact surgery, probably when you're dealing with it, because that's really kind of the only way to fix it. But it's one of those nagging type of pains. It stings, especially when you're moving, and for a lineman, typically you think, oh, they don't have to deal with it as much. Well, when you're out there and you're dancing on the edge like tackles do, it can impact your play, and they are fighting through something. But the reality
how did you manage through it? Did you, because Jason Avant had the same injury, and he told us that he almost had to find some compensation techniques and it actually helped him find new ways to get open. But how did you kind of play through that pain and compensate?
You just go and hope you don't feel that screaming pain. It was weird to me. It felt worse when it was colder, which is obviously playoff time. But like when I was warm, it wasn't as bad. And there's some things you could do pain wise to help try to manage it through the game. You're gonna feel god awful the following day, but it's one of those things where, hey, you can get through 3 hours battling it out, but it's never going to be all the way healed until you have the opportunity to correct it through surgery and rehab over the course of the season. It's just fighting through it, right? I tell people all the time, at the end of the year, no one's healthy, right? Everyone's hurt. So it's about fighting through it. And it is one of those things for some guys, you can manage it. And on the flip side of that, I want to point out that just because I was able to play through it, Lane Johnson's able to play through it, it's different for every single person, right? So don't think because, oh, you heard that this player, but no. That thing hurts, right? And it impacts different players in different ways. But I think for Lane, he's as tough as they get, and it's going to be easy for him because he doesn't have to open up like a receiver. I think he's going to be able to really manage and continue to play at a high level.
Corey, when Wentz tore his ACL in that Rams game, because I know Geoff and I talked to a lot of people, and quite frankly, most of the people we talked to during that season felt that not that the season was over, but it wasn't like they didn't feel like they could go deep in the playoffs because it wasn't Wentz. This is when Wentz was really playing well. When it happened, when you found out that it was an ACL, did you get down? What were your feelings when that happened?
Well, I think everyone felt that way a little bit, and anyone that says anything differently is lying. It's hard to believe going into a season or heading towards the postseason. You just win a division that day. You're like, we lost our guy who should be the MVP of the league. We know we're going to keep going and play at a high level. Like that sneaks in there for a little bit. Like, dang, this is a messed up opportunity here, right? But the reality of it is, we knew that our team was good. We knew that Nick had the ability, and it was about everyone kind of really stepping their game up, and that was able to happen. I think Nick played at a high level, and people forget Nick was a Pro Bowl player, right? He's been shown that he had the ability to play at a high level. And I think for any player, myself included, it's always about being consistent. And I think for Nick, as he developed and he got hot, he was a Nick Foles that we all know, and Philly especially knows and loves for being a big time playmaker. And he was able to help lead the team to victory with his play.
Yeah, one thing that really stands out about that 2017 team, Tori, is how balanced you guys were. There was not a 1,000-yard receiver. There was not 1,000-yard rusher, which to win a Super Bowl without that is pretty amazing. I think I remember going back and seeing there were only 4 games where somebody might have had 100 yards of offense in a game, either rushing or receiving. You guys are so balanced. But I have to ask you this. If I shot you up with truth serum right now, comparing that team to this 2022 Eagles team, which one is better?
That's a pretty good question right there. I try not to just be like, hey, because I played on the team or the team was better, but you know, I do think, I'm not gonna lie, that team when we were rolling, like, listen, we were beating teams. Like, I think everyone felt like we were the best team in the league. And I can say that I feel like there's been times this year where people have been trying to wait and then judge, like, oh, maybe this team's not as good, or they're not playing anybody. Like, we were playing guys, right? Like, we were battling, we were going through it. So I think you can flip a coin for it. I think the most important thing is that it's one of the things where it'll all show at the end, right? I think the ultimate goal is to go and win. I tell people all the time, and I played in a team in Baltimore that was very similar to the team that I was on in Philadelphia. Anquan and myself were the two leading receivers. We didn't have 1,000 yards, right? We didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver there. I think when it comes to just the environment and the team, the culture, that's really what matters. The team I played on my rookie year in 2011 in Baltimore, we lost in the AFC Championship game. I thought that team was better than the team the next year, but what good does it matter? Who got it done, right?
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things here where you can look at the talent. I think you see the offensive line, a bunch of them are still the same, older, right? But then you look at the receivers on the outside, 2,000-yard guys, two guys that can really ball. So I think that's probably would be an area where you would say overall, I think that group's a little stronger in terms of a two-headed monster. I think Goddard has done a great job. He's really a star in my opinion. So I think offensively there, you could say that. Running backs are doing a solid job there too. But to me, I'm not a person that falls in love with numbers. You fall in love with production. I think our defense may have been a little bit better. Again, that's my opinion on that, talking about the second-year cross. But now look at, Gardner Johnson and what he's been able to do, and the linebackers flying around. I mean, it's a very talented team. And so I think the fact that we're even having this conversation goes to show, how strong that both of these teams are. But to me, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if someone said, hey, this team is way better. But at the same time, I do know that, we brought it home at the end.
That's right.
Tori, I got to ask you. Well, let's talk about coaching here. You've seen Nick Sirianni from afar. I don't know if you know him at all, but you lived it in 2017. We talked about the Wentz injury and how things were held together. What was Doug like to play for in 2017?
Man, Coach Peterson was awesome. The thing I loved about him was that he allowed people to be themselves. He wasn't like a little control freak. He trusted the team. He trusted the leaders on the team, and he was able to lead. He crafted a vision. Guys followed him. Guys believed it, right? And I love that he was able to just let people be themselves. So oftentimes people try to overthink it and, kind of overload guys. And it's like a psychological war between the players and the coaches. And, or you hear coach talking, you're just like, all right, it's going through one ear and not the other. But I thought he was sincere in his actions. I thought he was sincere in his words. And I feel that same way about Coach Sirianni right now. I love him to death. I never played for him. I know him, having the opportunity to be around him and watch and how he's leading his team, but the same feel is there. Guys can tell, pardon my French, like if someone's BSing or not.
Sure.
Right. And I think that's ultimately what it boils down to. Do guys buy into that? And I think when you have success and you guys can tell that you're there for them, they play harder, right? And they believe in your game plan and your coaches. And I think you're able to see it. That's why it's no secret as to why this team is playing how they were. I said from the beginning of the year, if Jalen Hurts is able to take the next step, this team right here is good enough to win a Super Bowl. And he took 1,000 steps.
Oh yeah,
right, 1,000 steps forward. And he's playing the way that we all knew and believed he was capable of playing. I love Jalen Hurts. I think he's a great quarterback. I've always loved him. But on the flip side of that, I know people are like, oh, you were one of those guys. I've never been a person to knock Jalen Hurts. I've always been a person that knocked the process of having quarterbacks and hurting their little feelings, right? I'm always big on that because I say out of all the guys on any given team, the only person that can say it's their team is the quarterback. Everyone else can be gone tomorrow. But quarterbacks are kind of there to stay. So sometimes I think you have to protect their little fragile egos. But I think it worked out well, for the team. and Jalen that, he's been able to, really earn and show who he's really been. He's one of the toughest kids I've seen, period. I was a fan of him since college, watching him go through some things, and I love watching him play now. He's definitely a kid and a player that I look at and I'm like, man, like I talked to my son about how professional he's been, his leadership, and how he didn't let, a low moment define who he is.
Absolutely. All right. So you played for the 49ers and Eagles. So when you watch this game on Sunday, do you have any kind of interest either way? Do you just watch it as a straight analyst, or you got friends on both teams? How's that work?
I have friends on both teams. I have friends that I talk to all the time on both teams. But to me, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was leaning towards the home team, right? I think that's just how it goes when it comes to the situation there. Winning in Philadelphia was special. My time in San Francisco, we actually stunk. But I have a lot of love and respect for that organization as well. So to me, it's not a lose situation if the 49ers win, because I have a lot of respect for Jed York, and that group over there. So I'm excited about this game either way. But if you ask me who do I want to win, I'm definitely leaning towards the Birds.
By the way, I don't think you've ever played with DeMeco Ryans, but he's had a pretty fast rise from a player to assistant coach to defensive coordinator and most likely head coach next year. What do you know about DeMeco, and what do you see from his style of being a defensive coordinator?
He's one of the guys you just know from watching him play, right, across the league. And, I think it's pretty cool. I believe I played against him when he was in Houston. So, it's pretty cool to watch a guy there. I'm always pro player. Like, I love when former players are able to step up and show that, they're not the guys that you have to just tell them what to do. They have the ability to learn and dictate and control rooms. So anytime you see guys kind of breaking the stereotypes down, I know a lot of people don't see it as such, but I know, Adam, you're a huge historian of this game, and you know how people viewed players and thinking they weren't smart enough to be coaches. So I think it's pretty cool to watch his rise as a coach. I think he should be a head coach in this cycle, but if he knows, like I know, you want to pick the right situation, and maybe that situation isn't there. But if it's not this year, it's going to be in the next few, because he has that superstar potential as a coach. And what we forget to mention,
so obvious, by the way.
Absolutely. When the way he is as a coach, but the one thing that people forget is how the team responds to him, how he leads that way. Anyone can coach X's and O's. Football is not rocket science, right? An offense is an offense. A defense is a defense. You can find any coach in America to run your team, but every coach doesn't have the ability to get 50-something stubborn men to follow their belief and believe that they're good enough to buy in to get it done. And I think DeMeco has that potential. And obviously we're seeing what that looks like with Coach Sirianni here.
They didn't call him Mufasa for nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
When he was roaming the halls of the Novacare. So that was an early indication. All right, Tori, we really thank you for coming on. We can't let you leave without somewhat of a prediction. You don't have to give me like the score, but I'll just ask you it this way, because your answer will be revealed. There's 4 teams left: Kansas City, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Philadelphia. All right. Which one is coming home with the trophy?
I say Philly and the Chiefs. Based on
the game.
Based on me watching Patrick Mahomes jogging around on the practice field, I wasn't expecting to see that. Based on how his ankle looked, so I think he's going to be all right. Then I think with healthy Mahomes, the Chiefs are going to be able to pull that one out. Because I was at the Ravens-Bengals game, I was not convinced that the Bengals were a better team than the Ravens. He's got lucky. If he doesn't reach the ball out, the scores flip the other way, because they really couldn't move the ball versus them. And flip side of that, we're gonna go Eagles Chiefs, and the Eagles are bringing home their 2nd ring, and I'll be there to watch it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And then you'll have to come back on Inside the Birds after and talk about it.
For sure.
Let's do it.
All right, great stuff. Former Eagles wide receiver Torrey Smith. Again, happy birthday, Tori.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the games, and we look forward to having you back on ITB soon.
All right, thank you. Appreciate y'all having me.
All right, you got it. For Tori Smith, Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching Inside the Birds TV.